Alrighty, guys, so today we have a very special guest. They've got a YouTube channel named Seattle Yugioh. You guys might recognize his face. Very, very good Yu-Gi-Oh player that actually recently attended a Yu-Gi-Oh event and got actually banned and escorted out of the event for buying Yu-Gi-Oh cards at a Yu-Gi-Oh event. So go ahead and tell us about your story, and you know, maybe if you want to go over like your tops or whatever, feel free to go ahead and do so.
Just a lot of regionals, but as far as so technically, just because you did say banned, I didn't actually get banned. I got DQ'd. So according to Konami, there's like a difference between. So just to clear that up, because I did get asked, I did get some messages people like, are you banned? Are you banned? I'm like, not as far as I know.
Okay, but
you
I did
get DQ'd.
Okay, but you were you banned from the event? Like after like this happened?
No. So I am not like long-term banned. Essentially, anytime you. Well, this was explained to me. Anytime you fill out a DQ form, it goes to a separate like Konami entity, and then from there they decide, does this person need to be punished further? So
so is it
up at this point? It's still up in the air. I don't have like confirmation. I'm not long-term banned, but as far as I know, I'm good to go.
Okay, so but you did get disqualified for specifically just buying cards, right? There was no like ruling issues or like unsporting conduct. Okay, so you got disqualified for buying cards in terms of like the full clarification for wording.
Yeah. So so the way they explained it to me is when I got DQ'd, I was also forbidden to be in that venue for that weekend.
you got put on the forbidden list.
I got put on the forbidden list for a weekend, essentially.
Okay, now let me ask you: did you at least attempt to like go into a disguise? Because everyone has to wear a mask, as far as I'm aware, right?
Yes, you're required to wear a mask.
Okay. And you didn't try to go back in. You didn't try to pull like a Bandit Keith Yu-Gi-Oh like anime move where you just go in anyways.
I mean, okay. Truth be told, there's 3,000 people, but I am 6'5". I'm a big dude. I am super recognizable. So I did not want to push my luck. So
okay.
And
so
I know for a fact that if you did get caught and you're doing that, that's an auto ban. So yeah, if you're in my situation, don't do that. That's
okay. So because like I said, for me and I think a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh players, they wouldn't care obviously if you were to go and buy Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Now, since you probably got told, what was like the exact like wording of being disqualified because you bought cards? Like I if you were to ask me that rule, I would have been like, yeah, they probably tell you don't buy cards for cash, but everyone's in there. Like if you've been to a real Yu-Gi-Oh event, everyone's using their phones like the whole time, to check card prices. And like if someone just slips it, your Venmo or PayPal, whatever, like how would they be able to catch somebody also with this, right? Like that's
truth be told, if you go to any YCS on a Friday, you can't walk more than 5 feet without seeing someone doing a PayPal transaction. Like it's just extremely rampant. And truth be told, I don't think there's any real way, for them to stop it. I mean, they can attempt to police it, but again, like, at the end of the day, it's two willing people that are trying to make a private deal, and it doesn't really matter what it's gonna, if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. And I don't think any policies would ever stop it. But they can obviously increase the level of punishment, so it's even harder to do, or less people are willing to do it. So. I think that's kind of the route that they're going.
Yeah, that's what I'm actually worried about, because I've been to a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh events, and sometimes like you just see that one extra card for the event, and you're like, I'll just get it at the event, and like you never think twice. And sometimes vendors literally will not have that card, or sometimes it could be even more like dumb in terms of being disqualified if you were to buy a card when you're just literally buying the same card, but you're like, I just want to get that max rarity at the event. Like it's not even anything malicious. And to at least give Konami some sort of credibility here, and to kind of give some people the understanding of it, is they're probably renting out a venue. They're saying this is going to be a Yu-Gi-Oh event, but in terms of legal ramifications, it's probably due to the venue not having it so like everyone can buy, sell, and trade, like let's say like a sneaker event or something where everyone's buying, selling, and trading, versus like you have individual vendors. Because as far as I'm aware of, the vendors don't pay money directly to Konami to sell there, nor do they give them a percent. They are going there for free as far as I'm aware of. So it doesn't have any incentive. Like I know some people may think, oh, Konami wants to get as much money as possible because the vendors have to pay a percent. That has nothing to do with it. My guess is it's probably the venue that they're renting out. It doesn't have it in its legal wording to allow everyone to sell. So at least we're kind of at least giving Konami some sort of leverage here and understanding why. But the fact that it's not even you selling.
Sure it has to do with like business licenses and technically if you are selling any product, especially in, obviously overseas might be different, but for the United States if you're selling something, you realistically should be paying taxes on it. It should be, reported to the IRS. And I'm sure the venues have, some sort of policy. And, Konami obviously is going to want to be within that policy because obviously they want to host multiple events. They don't want to just get basically disbarred or, they don't want to get banned from the venue themselves, right? From hosting the event. So but at the end of the day, I think, realistically, if they show a good faith effort that they're attempting to make sure that people are not buying and selling on the floor, then that should be all that's required. I think, in my case where, they're scrolling through a week's worth of Facebook posts on, private groups and digging up like old posts and trying to, get you on something like that. That's where it's like, okay, that's, in my opinion, that's extreme overreach by Konami.
Now, just for clarification, also, I want to mention, he wasn't caught selling Yu-Gi-Oh cards and buying them with like cash straight up. He got disqualified and forbidden from the event from posting on a private Facebook group, okay? And the way I say it is like, if you're posting on like Facebook Marketplace or any of these Craigslist or whatever, I just think it's so strange that someone out there in Konami is going to these private Yu-Gi-Oh groups, which you have to actually request to join, then you're accepted, then you can start browsing these posts, finding the person being like, okay, this guy's at the event, let's get him, boys. Like, that to me, like, if you were to tell me, because as far as I'm aware, I remember seeing the post on April 1st, and I was like, okay, this is like a meme, right? But then it started getting some traction, and I literally thought it was a joke. Like, I was like, no way did they go through Facebook to try to ban people. And then I'm like, oh, this is real. This is interesting. Let's set up like an interview, because I want to hear like the story of like what exactly, like how did they, like, they just were like, I saw you post this. Like, how did it happen?
To give full context, if you know me, I love high rarity cards, as most Yu-Gi-Oh degenerates, and you know what I mean. If you want to max out your deck, you want to max out your deck. So I was at YCS Vegas for the 3v3, and I got actually just crushed in like the main event, just destroyed by Runic, and I was playing cash, and I was like, man, I really want to pick up that deck. That deck looks so fun, and I already had the Runic cards in my collection, but I wanted to upgrade to the collector's rares because they just look beautiful. And speak of the devil, I mean, it's in the background right now. You got Fountain up there. That's one of the cards I was looking to buy. So what I did at Vegas is, I went to all the vendors. I think there had to been at least minimum 6, maybe up to 8. I can't remember 100%. But I went to every vendor. I asked them, hey, do you guys have this card? No, we don't have it. We don't have it. We don't have it. They didn't even have like the ultra rares. They didn't have anything. So I was like, man, that's kind of disappointing. I would hope that, vendors in LA would have it. So, I knew about a week before attending the event, I already had it booked out a while back. I knew about a week before, I was like, okay, I want to buy these cards. I want to have them in my deck. What are my options at this point? So I was like, I can either buy them on TCG Player, which, TCG Player is pretty awesome. But truth be told, if you're buying it the week before, they're probably not going to come in time, realistically. So I was like, okay, that's not really the best option. I can ask my local friend groups, in like Seattle, but I mean, again, there are kind of rare cards to try to get like the whole thing. So I was like, what better way than go into a group, YGO Black Market, shout out to them. Awesome group, honestly. I had no issues. But I made a post and I just said, hey, I'm going to be at the 250th in LA. I want to buy these cards. If you have them, please let me know. Something along those lines. My intention, truth be told, was to buy them from vendors. I know there's a lot of vendors in the group, and straight up, I just wanted to just play the cards. I mean, they look nice. I had no problem with the price, so the Friday I get there, I go to the vendors, I didn't get any messages back on the post. So I was like, okay, whatever. I'll just try to figure it out. And worst case, okay, I just play the ultras. Not a big deal. So I go to the vendors and they have them. Gamer's Choice, which is, shout out to them. They had those, they had, some other Starlights I was looking for. So I think I ended up spending, somewhere around the benchmark, like $800 to get the stuff that I wanted. And I was happy and, thought nothing of it. And then, come Saturday main event, I'm in the second round and I hear, To Widow Anker, like, please report to the judging table or whatever. And I was like, that's, at first, my first thought was like, whoa, am I getting a feature match? But then I'm like, I'm 5 minutes into the round right now. Like, I've gotten features matches before, and they're always going to come to your table first before you know like start playing, because obviously, you know, they want to do the die roll on the screen and all that. So I was like, okay, that's probably not the case. But then it struck me too is, you know, they were using my Facebook name, because my actual name is Jordan Anker, and you know, Widow Anker's whole Sky Striker thing kind of just came to me. So I'm hearing Jordan Widow Anker, and I'm like, the heck? But you know, I'm an honest person. I'm not the type of person to be like, oh, I didn't do anything, you know. I'm just thinking I didn't do anything wrong. It's just kind of weird. And I was thinking also the head judge, his name is Anthony Tichella. Really nice guy. He used to go to my locals back when I lived in the Bay Area. So I was thinking like, oh, maybe like he saw something on my deck list, or I don't know, like maybe he just saw me and then was like, oh, I'm gonna call him up by his Facebook name or something like along those lines, you know. Obviously, like I'm cool with a bunch of people in the community, so, and a lot of people know me by Widow Anker, so I was like, okay, not a big deal. They, you know, basically were like, hey, this is kind of serious. We need to watch your stuff. You need to come to this back room. And immediately I'm just like, okay, that's not good. Like, if you're ever at a Konami event and you're getting
you pull to the back
room, yeah, that is not a good sign. I promise you, especially even in the middle of a round. So I'm like, okay, what's going on? Have no idea. And essentially it was the assistant head judge, who I'll leave nameless for now, but if you look at my post, you can figure it out. But essentially tells me, hey, here's the deal. You're getting DQ'd, and the reason for it. And he has like a folded piece of paper, and it is a printed out screenshot of my Facebook post I made a week prior, showing like the 3 like runic tips that I like screen grabbed off like eBay or something, and it has my exact verbiage. And you know, I'm just like extremely confused, because I'm like, I didn't know. First off, I didn't even know like that they would ever go through like Facebook like that.
Yeah, because as far as more like I understand, like at any Yu-Gi-Oh event, like they'll say like you guys can't like, you know, sell stuff for money. It's like a normal thing for like most Yu-Gi-Oh events, but like is it really enforced? Not really. I mean, everyone's on their phones checking out card prices, and then you could easily Venmo, PayPal, whatever. So that's a surprise to me as well, that it's actually enforced. But anyways, continue on.
So I'm like, okay, you know, and I asked him, I'm like, you know, I'm reading my exact words, because I want to know what I said first before I like, you know, I actually studied law. So, you know, I know like, I don't want to open myself into a can of worms where I'm like, you know, backpedaling, but I read my post and I'm reading it, and I'm listening to what he's explaining to me. And I asked him, I'm like, hold on. I say I want to buy at the venue. I'm like, I asked him straight up, I'm like, is that a breach of policy? And he's like, well, it is. And I'm like, explain to me how you know that my intentions were not to buy from vendors, and my intentions were to buy from the floor.
That's fair.
And he said, well, you did not specifically post at the vendor's booth.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, so if I can show you proof, because right at this point, it's not like they got me in the hand in the cookie jar. Like,
yeah, exactly. You haven't been.
No, they never saw anything, you know. So I pull up my phone. I go to my I bought it on a credit card, so I pull up my credit card statement, and I show him my receipt. I'm like, look,
okay,
these are the cards I bought. This is the receipt. This is from Gamer's Choice. I bought it yesterday. You know, I didn't buy a single card on the floor. And essentially, he goes, okay, let me take that into consideration and think about that.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
He leaves. So he leaves the room, and I'm like, they literally have nothing. You know, they have nothing on me. I didn't do anything wrong. As far as I know, I didn't break any policy. Comes back and then goes, yeah, we understand you have receipts and we have proof, but we are still going to move forward with
wow.
I'm like, okay, so you're essentially, and it really just rubbed me the wrong way, because what it really comes down to when you break it down is, you know, if you understand law in the United States, it's innocent until proven guilty. But Konami's stance is guilty until proven innocent. And even if you show like proof, it has to be beyond reasonable doubt, you know. And I felt like I checked both of those boxes, and still they just stuck to their guns and said, nope, we are making the decision to DQ you, despite, you know, really not having any breach in the policy.
Okay, so do you think if in the future, like, because what I find strange is, keep in mind, guys, this is a private Yu-Gi-Oh group too. It's not like you just visit on the website. You probably have to like join the group. That means that someone out there or multiple people are out there specifically. They got to be looking for this. I mean, if you're talking about this guy has printed it out, like, what are these guys going to? Like, do they have some sort of tool maybe that, like, when you register to play at these Konami events, they check your name and they're like, okay, I'm gonna look him up on Facebook, see if he's posted anything in all these Yu-Gi-Oh groups. This is like Matrix level, like to me, it's when I heard this post for the very first time, I thought it had to be an April 1st, like April Fool's joke. They're banning people, like, and like I could understand if like they were caught like buying the cards, but the crazy thing is, not only is it like, oh well, he might have bought it, but it was in a private Facebook group, so you guys got to be careful now. Now, what I also want to wonder is, if you were to do this, like, if you wanted to buy cards again, could you just say, if anyone's at the 250 YCS or whatever official Yu-Gi-Oh event, and then you put in parentheses, that is also a official vendor, so would that change, like, the outcome to prevent this?
I wanted to know, I'm like, okay, specifically, give me the exact specifics, because I want to know, like, where am I getting... like, where's the punishment coming from? And it essentially is two things. Because I said at the YCS, if that was excluded from my post, if I just said in LA looking to buy these cards, 0 issues. You're not getting DQ. Mm-hmm. So if you ever make a sales post, make sure that you're not including anything that mentions Konami or any Konami sanctioned event. So I asked him, I said, well, what if I said, kind of going down the what ifs, because obviously, like,
we're gonna do it anyway. Like, yeah, everyone goes to Yu-Gi-Oh events and they buy and sell and trade. It's kind of like a thing that everyone knows if you've been to an event, and it's crazy that they're not only just enforcing it, but like on this level, because how many people just have out their phones? Like, how are you supposed to check out? Is he buying it with cash? Is he just checking out, TCG player prices? That's what I find to be even crazier, is like the level that they're going to go to find these people that are posting.
I mean, also think about it from the standpoint of like the vendors, right? Like, yeah, and how many people do you think bought $800 of cards on Friday? Like,
on average, to a vendor, like they're buying from a vendor.
No, I'm saying, like, how many individual players bought at least $800 of cards?
I mean, like less than 1%. Like,
that's
definitely.
And so, do you think, like, from the vendor standpoint, right? Like, is it likely that I would have bought more cards? Yes. So by them enforcing this policy, realistically, they're also just hurting the vendors too, because now you're taking people that would obviously have, in most cases, probably continue to buy cards out of the venue. Like, I literally could not go back into the venue.
Yeah. I mean, what if you just lost all the rest of the rounds and you're like, you know what, this deck sucks, I'm gonna sell it to a vendor, and then they could have.
Yeah. I mean, that's. We've all heard of the story of the guy that loses and wants to sell their deck.
Yeah, and
it's
the thing is
pretty
that,
common, but
like I mentioned before, as far as I was told, because I've worked with multiple like vendors before, they don't have to get any of their profits and then give it to Konami. So Konami doesn't benefit off of the people buying and selling. And most vendors, will they care if you're buying, selling, and trading? No, because a lot of them will actually work for maybe a company for a weekend or whatever, and they will also buy cards off-site, like literally walk outside, or they'll just buy them, not even for the company, but because maybe their company doesn't want to buy this card, but like the guy that's working is like, hey, I'll buy it from you. And this is not anything that's like out of the ordinary, is what I'm trying to say here. But
also, I mean, you can consider like most vendors play the game.
Yeah,
at least did, and the only people that like would truly be upset, really realistically, would be maybe an owner. But again, I mean, it's that's kind of not the real like issue.
I don't think any vendor would be upset that you're buying cards from someone else. Like, I understand, like, in terms of like going to, like, when people go to the movie theaters, they sneak in their candy or they'll buy it from somewhere else. Like, this isn't the same level, because a lot of times vendors might not have the card, they might not have it in stock, or you're wanting something else that they simply don't have. There's 10,000 plus Yu-Gi-Oh cards. But one step that I want to also add to this video is the future. In the future, to prevent any of these things from happening. So you were saying we don't mention like Konami, YCS, or the event itself. So if we're to say, hey, I want to, if anyone's in the Burger King area, in LA, or some sort of weekend, that would prevent it, right? If you're just mentioning like.
So going back to that, they told me, hey, if I had said, I asked them, I said, hey, if I had said I want to buy these cards in LA, at the 250th, meet me at my hotel at the Hilton, They said that's still a DQable offense. You cannot mention Konami anywhere in your post.
Okay.
Like, just straight up. So
okay.
just keep that in mind.
So we got to be like, this weekend.
If you do, you must specify from a verified vendor, from like an official vendor.
Okay.
So just be careful on your word choice, because and again, I have my doubts as to whether they're actually going through the Facebook groups. My hunch is, I mean, there's really two outcomes, right? They either are doing that, which is kind of crazy.
That's ultra crazy.
There's someone that's going out of their way, to basically target players.
Yeah,
like or whatever. But I think realistically, another thing that's kind of crazy that someone told me, we were talking about the whole situation, because obviously it's been on top of our minds. But they were saying this sets a very, very dangerous precedent for future events. And he was saying, think about how malicious you could be with this policy, knowing Konami, like knowing how they're operating now. So, for example, my Facebook page was not that's not my legal name, right? Mm-hmm. But I still got DQ'd.
You're making fake posts? That's so big brain.
I mean, if you're in Zodiac, if you're in some of these groups, you have to take. I mean, you would not put it past certain people. I mean, think about okay, you have a high profile player, let's say just like Jesse Cotton, right? Let's just say he's undefeated and you just lost to him. What would stop you from going to the bathroom, making a Facebook account, name it Jesse Cotton, say I want to buy cards, screenshot it, send it to a judge, get him DQ'd? Maybe not even that day, maybe even the next day, right when he's going to Top Cut. I mean, realistically, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing to prove that he didn't make that post, and there's nothing to prove that that account was linked to me, other than it's not like they asked me, hey, is this you? They just went on the assumptive. And I think there's a way where you can essentially weaponize this policy to eliminate people out of the tournament. And think about this. I know from for example, Jake Quincy, he's a European player. So back when Konami in the tournaments, they would do online pairings, right? So if someone's Konami ID, which anytime you top a regional, or anytime there's like a final standings, right, it's your name plus your Konami ID. What you could do is you could use their Konami ID to find them and then drop them. And that happened to him. He traveled from Europe all the way over to, I think it was like YCS Charlotte, or one of the like YCS, I think about a year ago. And it just goes to show, like, people are not past being that petty.
Yeah.
Especially with like a high profile player. And given that that's a possibility, they need to be a little bit more stringent, not stringent, a little more lenient and understanding of, like, when these types of situations happen, that it's not just a black and white, oh, I have the screenshot, you're banned, like, type of deal.
Yeah, that definitely is something that some people may not factor in. I remember, now I'm curious, this is kind of off subject, but it's kind of related to, some people will go through many lengths to just win any video game, even if it's just for clout, because Yu-Gi-Oh, I mean, at the end of the day, this isn't for like millions of dollars, but I remember in the rulebook, people were saying about, like, if you misgender, was that an issue at the event at all? Because this is, like, I believe one of the first events that has this new rule, right? Or one of the larger ones.
I mean, truth be told, I was only there for about like 2 hours or 3 hours on Saturday, and then I was out of there. So, as far as I know, I didn't hear anything about that. But I think Pokemon had some sort of issue with something along those lines.
Oh, yeah, actually, yeah. I did actually see, like, a TikTok or something about that. But as far as Yu-Gi-Oh goes, I know that some people are like, oh, I'm going to use a strategy to win a YCS. Sometimes people, even in remote duels, I remember people were cheating like crazy in remote duels, having extra cards on off camera. They would just draw off screen. There's a lot of crazy things that people will do for a win. So I know some people might think it's crazy. Like, for me, it's already crazy enough that there's people that go into private Yu-Gi-Oh groups to find your post. And what I find most interesting is, how far back can they go for any of these posts to actually disqualify someone? Could it be like the event that you're going to? Or could it be like, oh, well, you did this last event, or you did this last year? I mean, throughout the course of history, I'm sure that we could find, through most of the people that even topped in Yu-Gi-Oh, by selling and trading. It's a very common thing in the Yu-Gi-Oh community to be like, hey, I'm looking to buy these cards at this. So I guess
at Nats, I've literally been at Nats and I've seen judges post their judge mats that they're getting for basically for pros, posting and say, hey, meet me at table 500. I got the chair beanie mat. And I'm like, okay, like, I know, I have vivid memories of seeing stuff like that. Like, it's crazy that they enforce this policy, or basically pass this policy and then enforce it with like an iron fist immediately. and essentially just try to make examples out of people. I think that's what they were doing, you know. Otherwise, I don't really have a good explanation as to why, you know, I got specifically targeted.
Yeah,
But,
it seems very strange, and they didn't compensate you for anything, right? They didn't say like, "Well, we're gonna DQ you, but we're gonna give you like your at least your entry feedback." Did they at least give you that, or
Nope. I emailed the tournament organizer, which is the side deck, which by the way, they actually owe me money because I paid for Vegas, I pre-reg for Vegas, and then I won my VIP qualifier, and they told me I'd get a refund, which they never did.
Okay.
So I actually, on Friday, I talked to them and they said, "Oh, shoot us an email." They still have not responded to that email, and they also I requested, you know, at least just starting, you know, the base level of, hey, can I get a refund? I didn't breach any policy yet. I'm, you know, basically got kicked out of the tournament. So,
Yeah. Okay. Now, just going back to what I was saying before, did they clarify like how long the post needed to be in order to get DQ? Because is it like
No.
all time?
I mean, they didn't. There's not any, as far as I know, there's not any specifics on that. So.
Huh. Now, I'm wondering if something happened where maybe someone that like owns the venue saw someone buying, and it was just that you got unlucky, and they're like, okay, we just got to get someone, right? Because it
So
just
it
seems very out of picture.
Yeah, it wasn't just me. From what I understand, I know I had a couple other people that the same situation happened to them, and from what I've heard it's been you know, somewhere around the 30 people mark.
Oh wow! So like you're saying, about 30 people had this
Yeah.
issue. Oh,
Yes.
I thought it was just
Yeah,
like
so-
a handful. At first, like I said, I thought it was literally an April Fool's joke.
So
but
yeah, I mean, that I know of personally, I know it was maybe like 3 or 4, but I've heard the number was all the way up to somewhere around 30.
wow,
Which I mean, you know, if you consider the fact that, you know, there's a lot of newer players that maybe don't even have Facebook that were just, you know, like showing up, you know, bought a card on the floor and then boom, immediately DQ'd. You know, like
yeah,
like
that's
that.
true. Yeah.
But that being said, so when I got DQ'd, you know, I essentially was you know, they basically said, "Hey, we can trust that you can leave the building and you're not going to come back." And I was like, "Yeah, no problem." So I leave the building, and you know, it's the middle of round 2 essentially. I mean, it was like 10 minutes into the round. So I go sit outside. I open my Facebook. I go to Yu-Gi-Oh! Black Market, and I scroll through, and I am not joking. I counted like 50 to 60 different people's posts where like it was literally the same thing I did, if not even more egregious. Like, "Hey, meet me at this counter, at this table, taking cash only." Like, you know, I mean, it's just like
undercover
it's a joke. Like,
spies.
literally, you could just get like, you know, probably, you know, a significant percentage of the tournament players out.
Yeah, but going into more specifics on preventing it, because obviously everyone wants to be like, "Hey, are you at this YCS?" Maybe it. What if your post would, in parentheses, were to say, "Not at the YCS though," because that's against the rules. Like, I think everyone would understand that means at the YCS, but at the same time, I'm trying to make it so people can't get in trouble, but at the same time still have the ability to do what they need to do, because at the end of the day, they're going to do it anyways.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
I want to.
so they basically said, "Hey, like, let's say for example, I think there's a YCS in Philadelphia coming up. If you just say, hey, in Philadelphia, looking to buy these cards," they said that that's not an issue.
Okay, so if you say
You're not mentioning Konami and you're not mentioning Konami event, so
okay,
you're fine.
so
So as long as you go that route, then you're fine. That being said, you know, if you do still like meet at the venue, then, you know, keep in mind, hey, if they see you there and they see you making a deal, like, you're still gonna get,
you'd probably want to say like, you know, at like if the venue is close to maybe a very specific building, you can say, if you're in Philly, in this like, you know, area that happens to be across the street from some sort of a event, then
I mean,
it just seems so weird though. At the end of the day, people are still going to do it.
Frustrates me too. And funny enough, my mom actually made this point because I grew up in LA. I live in LA. My parents live down there. And after I got DQ'd, I actually got dinner with them. So it was kind of nice. So funny. I mean, that wouldn't have happened otherwise. So, hey, thanks, Konami. But we were talking about the whole situation. And my mom was like, you know, if that post was a week ago, could they not have just messaged you and said, hey, you know, if that is your intention, do not do that. Or, you know, you could face penalties. Like, why does it have to get to the point where I'm literally in the middle of my round and that's when they're going to DQ me?
Yeah,
because, you know, if I found out ahead of time, hey, if I fly all the way down to LA, book the hotel, pay for everything, and then I'm getting DQ'd, but they had known about it for at least a week prior, that just seems extremely like.
I think it's funnier that they printed it out.
Almost to the point where it's like malicious. You know?
Yeah, exactly, because they printed it out. If they just were like, "Here, we just saw this screenshot. Someone sent it over," but it's like they printed it out. Like this is like preemptive. They were ready to hit you with the counter trap card as soon as you went in.
It just kind of sounds like they knew about it and they wanted to wait for me to show up. And
I think you should get at least your $20 back.
You know, honestly, I think I should too.
But yeah, that seems very strange that they wouldn't at least give you a refund. I mean, obviously giving you your whole flight and stuff, because the prize pool for Yu-Gi-Oh, even if you were to win, it wouldn't recuperate the cost of it anyways. And just to do that to someone, at least you could have given him, his money back for the entry fee. But at the end of the day, these are the rules, and I'm, very happy that we're at least able to talk, because this allowed us to understand, like, the key words, like you mentioned, YCS, and how we can prevent it in the future. I think it's great for all Yu-Gi-Oh players, but at the end of the day, people are going to do what they want to do. I remember when people used to slip, like, they would have their Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and they would put money, like, for example, spells and traps, they would have like $5 to $10, and then the monster cards, they would have a certain amount of money behind, and they would give you a Yu-Gi-Oh card, but there would be money behind inside the sleeve of the Yu-Gi-Oh card, so it looked like a normal trade transaction in the open, like, areas, so you could trade. And I know that people were doing that for a long time, and I was like, wow, this is a really great idea. So you could literally basically give money in front of judges. But now with phones, people just use their phones to just make transactions. So I don't think it's a rule that can be enforced. Yeah, I think as far as this rule goes, I don't think it's going to be enforced. But I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts, on this whole story. How are you guys going to get around this? Let me know down below. But is there anything else you wanted to add? Seattle Yu-Gi-Oh, aka Widow Anker?
Yeah, I do want to give a huge shout out to Amanda Lapalm, if you know who that is.
Great artist.
She runs Man of Moon. So about 30 minutes after, because I was basically, I don't even know what to do. Like, I was sitting outside and I was like, I'm just gonna make a Facebook post. I'm gonna explain exactly in detail, like exactly what happened, show the receipts, show everything. That way, because the truth be told, right, when I got outside and I saw those Facebook posts, I was like, man, there's a lot of people in jeopardy of their tournament being over right now.
Yeah.
Like, they don't even know. They do not even know.
Yeah, no one reads those.
Someone could get you. So I was like, and I was like, I hope people don't think it's an April Fool's joke. So I wrote, kind of a lengthy one. That way it was like, hey, this is pretty serious. Because even when I told my friends, like, after the round, I'm like, hey, I'm DQ. They're like, funny joke. Like, did you I'm guessing you just got scraped. It's like, no, I got scraped by Konami. Like, you do not understand. But yeah. So back to what I was saying is, Amanda messaged me, and I'm not even like totally friends with her like that. Like, she just messaged me kind of out of the blue and said, hey, I read your situation. That sounds so horrible. Like, let me see if I can, get you like kind of like a care package and just make your day a little bit better. So I thought that was really freaking nice of her. Didn't need to do that, but yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of her stuff, for her artwork and everything. So definitely a fan of her stuff now for life because of that. So pretty cool. If you guys are looking for field centers and deck boxes, look at her stuff because she's an awesome person. So shout out her.
Awesome. All right. Well, if you guys do want to check out Seattle Yu-Gi-Oh, aka Widow Anker, I will link them down below in the pinned comment. Feel free to go and check out his content as well. But thanks so much for telling us this full story, because, like I said, I thought it was an April Fool's joke, but it's a really good story. And, it's something that everyone that's going to Yu-Gi-Oh events now has some sort of knowledge, so you don't get banned or hit by the forbidden list or have to, like, sit outside, because, I mean, that's got to be painful. Like, all your friends are there and you're like, it's right there. Anyways, thanks for watching YouTube. Drop a like on your way out and go check out Seattle Yu-Gi-Oh for some more content. Peace out.